Hi. Today we're going to talk about recent changes in the North Carolina Energy Code as it applies to residential energy efficiency, also known as Chapter 11. We'll start with the slab. Slab on grade construction must conform to Table 1102.1 of the North Carolina Building Code. That means that slab on grade construction must meet the R value requirement as set forth in Table 1102.1 here. The builder must leave a 2-inch termite gap like this for inspections, and the top edge may be cut at a 45-degree angle away from the exterior wall. Now let's talk about the building's thermal envelope. (1102.1) provides correct R values for walls and other assemblies, as well as U factor and solar heat gain coefficient for skylights, windows, and doors. You can usually find those on the windows or the units itself. Details for all 3 climate zones in North Carolina, zones 3, 4, and 5, can be found in here. Insulation should be installed in constant contact with the air barrier and should be substantially free of gaps, voids, or compression. Insulation must also be properly installed and encapsulated behind tubs and showers, under stairs, inside fireplace cavities, and behind attic walls. For framed walls, cavity insulation must be surrounded on all sides with a rigid material or an air barrier such as plywood, sheetrock, or thermal ply. Basically, all walls, floors, and ceilings must be air sealed. That includes chases and drop ceilings, which must be capped. To separate conditioned space from unconditioned space, blocks must be placed directly under knee walls. Now let's go to a finished house and see the requirements for access hatches and doors. All access hatches and doors must be weather stripped and insulated. Vertical access doors, such as this factory-built access door, only require R5 insulation. Horizontal access doors require R10. However, one exception is that pull-down stairs shall be insulated to an R5 insulation value. Remember that non-rigid insulation materials are not allowed, but that insulation systems such as attic hatches that enclose the stair system are allowed. If exposed foam plastic is used on any access, be sure it meets the provision of North Carolina Residential Code. 1102.1 also deals with ceiling insulation requirements. Specific insulation requirements exist for ceilings with attic spaces and ceilings without attic spaces. The next change to the code is often misunderstood. It has to do with ceilings without attic space above them. Cathedral ceilings, bay windows, and other similar areas that do not allow sufficient space for the insulation required above them may meet the minimum requirement of R30. But this reduction in the requirement is limited to 500 square feet. Anything beyond that, meaning more than 500 square feet of ceiling without attic space above it, has to meet the required R value as listed in Table 1102.1 for your climate zone. In ceilings with attic spaces, when the enclosed attic space is fully enclosed, the insulation can be R30. Also, where space is limited, for instance where the roof, ceiling, and wall assemblies adjoin, insulation need only fill the space up to the air baffles. Let's go to the basement. Oh, and one more thing. In the case of a decorative door or window like this one, which normally would not comply with the Energy Code, the builder is allowed 15 square feet of non-compliant U factor and solar heat gain coefficient. To the basement. Floor insulation must be installed to maintain permanent contact with the underside of the subfloor decking. But there is an exception. That is, garage ceilings, cantilevers, or buildings on pilings with an enclosed floor cavity. In this case, the insulation may contact the lower air barrier if the band is insulated. Of course, support wires and other devices that hold the floor insulation in place must be no more than 18 inches apart and within 6 inches of each end. While we're down here, basement walls can be insulated to R10 on the outside or inside using foam board, or R13 when using the standard wood frame cavity fill method. In a crawl space setting, the floor can be insulated if desired. But if the wall is chosen for insulation, you must again refer to Table 1102.1 for R factor guidelines depending on your climate zone. By the way, Termite inspection clearance and wicking gaps are allowed without energy penalty. What do you say we get into HVAC ducting, equipment, and testing next? Heating and cooling equipment must be sized in accordance with North Carolina Mechanical Code, and the efficiency of these units must comply with current National Appliance Energy Conservation Act minimum standards. As you also probably know, there are 3 considerations for duct insulation. In conditioned space, where AC and heat are always available, no special insulation is necessary. In semi-conditioned spaces, such as closed crawl spaces and sealed attic, R4 is required. But unconditioned space, such as vented crawl spaces or unconditioned attics, requires R8. All ducts, air handlers, filter boxes, and building cavities used as return ducts must be sealed. All right, all sealed? Great. For duct testing, which is required, total duct leakage must be less than or equal to 6 cubic feet per minute for every 100 square feet of conditioned floor area, when tested at a pressure differential of 25 pascals. The results must be noted properly on the Energy Efficiency Certificate. Now I'm going to go over a couple quick points on lighting fixtures. When recessed lighting fixtures are used in the thermal envelope, they must be sealed with a gasket or caulk between the housing and the ceiling covering. And a minimum of 75% of the lamps in permanently installed lighting fixtures must be high-efficiency lamps. There, that'll save some energy and some money. All new construction is required to have a programmable thermostat. Another required energy-saving device is a heat pump lockout to prevent supplemental heat operation. Maintenance information must be furnished for heating and cooling equipment. This packet, the owner's manual, and other appropriate paperwork usually comes with the equipment from the manufacturer. We're looking good, and we're almost there. One of the last things to be checked is the building's air tightness, which is required to be demonstrated. This can be done 2 ways. First, by visual inspection during the building process. The building must comply with the insulation enclosure and air sealing provisions we talked about earlier, as well as address the applicable items from Table 1102.4.2. The air barrier inspection list then must be certified by the builder, permit holder, or registered design professional. A second way to check the building's air tightness is the actual testing option. This requires performance testing done with a blower door fan assembly, to be reported by a permit holder, a North Carolina licensed general contractor, HVAC contractor, home inspector, a registered design professional, a certified BPI envelope professional, or HERS rater. Detailed testing criteria and protocol are outlined in the code. Air leakage must be less than or equal to one of the 2 following performance measurements: either 0.30 CFM50 per square foot of surface area or 5 air changes per hour. Finally, a permanent certificate like this must be completed by the builder, the permit holder, or a registered design professional, then posted in one of the several approved locations in the finished house, including on or in the electrical distribution panel, as long as it doesn't block or cover circuit directory labels in any way, or it can be placed in a kitchen cabinet, in the attic by the insulation card, or another location as specified in the code. And that's about it. I hope this was an effective tool for helping you understand and implement some of the new provisions in the North Carolina Energy Code. Thanks for taking the time to learn something new. I'll see you next time.